So in this program, we've got a runner, and that runner, we want to analyze and determine what type of constructors, instance variables, and methods we need to create in the word class in order for this runner to run properly as intended. So we've got a scanner object being created. We're going to prompt the user to enter a single word. That word that is grabbed with keyboard.next, that's a string, and it's going to be used on an object called word, and that object is created from the word class. So we can see here in line 9, here's where we're going to need a constructor. And then the dot operator on that object indicates a method, so we're going to need a set word method. Okay, then we have another dot operator on the word object called find letter, so that's a method, and then another dot operator for get word. Okay, so those are the three methods in the constructor that we're going to need to create in the word class. So let's start with the instance variable. So we're going to be passing a string grabbed by the user's input into the word class, and we're going to construct an object then that needs to have an instance variable to hold that string. So since it's an instance variable, we'll call it private, and it'll be a string called word. Okay, then we need a constructor, so public word, and that constructor did not receive any parameters, so it's no argument constructor. And we actually don't even need to do anything with it. We can just use an empty, since there's no parameters, we can just ignore that and use the default constructor. Okay, then we're going to need a public method to set the word, and that's going to be a void. So public void set word. And that did receive a string parameter. So string initial word. And that method, because it's going to receive data and assign that data to the value of the instance variable, so word is equal to initial word, that we call a setter method. Right? So this set word is going to set the value of the instance variable for the object that was instantiated. And then we also needed to create a getter method, and the getter returns the value of the instance variable. So this will be a string return type, and that's get word. It did not receive any parameters. So it's a no argument method, and this is going to return the value of the instance variable word. Okay, so we've got an accessor method with get word. It returns the value of the instance variable. Then we had another method that, let's look back at the runner, was called find letter. Okay, and that find letter method is going to tell us how many times the letter occurs in the word. So we're going to create a method called find letter, and that returns an int. So public int find letter, and we're going to pass to it a character called initial letter. We just call it letter since it's not an instance variable. And this method we're going to write so that we can count up the number of times that letter occurs in the word that was given. Now this is going to help us find information about the word object in this class. So this is not an accessor, not a mutator method. Instead, this is a helper method. It's going to help us to do something with the class. So let's go ahead and start with a count. So int count will begin at 0. And then we're going to need to make a loop to traverse through this string. So for int I, starting at 0, we'll go until I gets to our word's length. And we'll increment I by 1 each time. And now we'll need a condition. So if word.substring starting at I, which is 0, to I plus 1, the next letter, if that dot equals the letter, then we're going to do an increment to our count. And then outside of the loop, then let's return the count. Okay, so find letter, let's just double check our runner, make sure that we've got everything right. So we're going to grab the word with next. We're going to grab, oh, the letter is a string, not a char. So let's come back over here and change that data type to string. Okay, and then let's double check this again. So we've got find letter, we've got get word, we've got set word. We don't need a constructor because we're going to use the default constructor. So I think it looks like we're good to go. All right, let's compile our runner and we'll run. Enter a single word. So let's do MISSISSIPPI for Mississippi. And now we're going to enter a single letter. So let's put in S. And it tells us that the letter S occurs 4 times in the word Mississippi, right, which is correct. Okay, if we run it again, we'll enter the word applesauce this time, and then we'll put in P, and the letter P occurs 2 times in the word applesauce. So we can see that we were able to analyze the runner code, looking for all of the indicators for what we needed to use to create our class, what instance variable we would need, what type of constructor, right? We ended up using just the default constructor. And then we looked for methods that we needed to create. Set word, that was gonna change the value of the instance variable, so that's a mutator method. The get word method over here in line 13, that one retrieves the value of the instance variable. That's called an accessor method. And then the find letter method, that one was a helper method that completed a task that we wanted to help us find information about the number of times that the letter occurred in the word. Now in this particular runner, we were able to use the default constructor because we had a no argument constructor. No parameters were passed no values were passed by a parameter into an argument in the constructor. We could change that pretty easily. So if we wanted to change this to have a constructor that used the value, then we could say string initial word is equal to, and then we could grab our keyboard.next and move that up here. Okay, then we no longer need a set word method, and we would pass the initial word into the constructor as an argument. So the keyboard.next grabs the word that the user enters, stores it as initial word, then initial word gets passed to the constructor. So back in our word class, now we would need to make a constructor to receive that information. So public word, and it's going to receive the initial word and then we would assign that initial word to the instance variable. And since we are using the constructor now to assign that, we no longer need the setter method to set the word. Okay, so now we can compile. And then we'll run to test out those changes. So we'll enter the word happy and count up the letters times that P occurs, and the letter P occurs 2 times in the word happy. So that's 2 different ways that we could set up this same program.